The other projects in this course are as follows. We will be doing a feast celebration. There are two minor feasts that go on, or there are two minor feasts that come out of the Apocrypha, or that Second Temple period. The first one is a feast that you would think is almost a major feast within Judaism, but it's not, and the feast is Hanukkah. Culturally, practically today, Hanukkah gets a lot of press, but we're not even really sure what would have been Hanukkah celebrations for people like Jesus of Nazareth, Paul. We know it was going on, but it was very small. Hanukkah has built up steam over the years. So Hanukkah, which is really in December, early December, it's a period of 8-night celebration. Half the class, and we get that first time we're together, that first Thursday, we'll have a sign-up sheet. Half the class will be working on a Hanukkah festival to present to the larger U-Pike community sometime before the middle of March. Before spring break, you guys will do that. So half the class will work together, collaboration, and you will look to do Hanukkah. The other half of the class, you guys will be signing up for another minor festival, which is Purim. I absolutely love Purim. Purim comes from the story of Esther. Purim's a time when people will dress up in all kinds of wild costumes and eat great food, give money to the poor, tell jokes, and it's a time of celebrating God's ironic twist, this behind-the-scenes way that God delivers the Jewish people from imminent annihilation. And half of you will then host a Purim celebration for the wider U-Pike community. Now, with that, you may be asking, what in the world is going on? What am I talking about when I talk about these festivals? Well, here's what I mean. These festivals are, well, number one, you have to research what the festival is all about. Okay, that's kind of critical. Number one, research the feast. Number two, you have to set a date for it. Now, the Purim celebration will take place on March 5th. So if you know you're already going to be gone playing in a golf tournament or something, don't sign up for March 5th, because that's actually the day of Purim. We do want to celebrate it on that day if at all possible. So you will sign up as a group, and then you will divvy out roles together, and you can, however you need to meet as a group, that's fine. But everyone needs to have a part, because you will then be evaluating each other's performance. So if one person doesn't do anything, your other group members will let me know, and then you'll just simply flunk the project. So everyone has to have a part. You need to reserve space to do this. Part of your planning is also the promotion of it to the campus. If there's anything that you need to purchase, then you need to come see me, so I can work out budgetary issues for that. You won't have to use any of your money for this. This is not a project that's going to cost you money. It will just simply cost you time. So, group planning, number one, you're finding this all on page 6 of your syllabus, okay? So, group planning, there's the promotion of the feast on campus, because the Apocrypha, just like the New Testament or the Old Testament, are communal documents. These things are designed to be shared in community, and so that you've got to promote it. Now, like a lot of other things, people may not show up, but it's your responsibility to get the word out in various ways. So you'll figure out how people, maybe you tweet this, you send, I don't know, Instagram, Snapchat, you use the weekly update, you put it in the Bear Facts, you send out a campus-wide email, you put up posters. These are all ways that you would communicate. So, group planning, promotion of the feast on campus, inviting everyone to become a part of this. Also, there has to be an educational piece of this, where you're actually teaching about this feast, or about this minor festival. And now, however you want to do that, you may do a small little lecture on this. You may do, which I wouldn't recommend, honestly. You may do a little handout with some information during the event. Maybe you make an app. I don't know. Be creative with this. Then, when it comes to the day of the Hanukkah celebration or the Purim celebration, your group has to lead it. I will be there, but I will be simply there as a participant and as an observer, not as one who's going to lead this. So from start to finish, your group will do that. Also, from start to finish, your group will be responsible for cleaning up. Yes, I don't want to be left there at the end cleaning everything up and thinking all kinds of awful things about you. So maybe somebody in the group, that's going to be their whole role, is cleaning up. That's fine. Then afterwards, there will be a group reflection piece where I will simply get you guys together after the event, and then we will reflect on it, what you've learned, what would you do differently. And I would encourage you to try to, how do I want to say this, specialize it to our college campus. What were ways to communicate this? Because this has lasting value. Jews believe these celebrations teach about their story with God, also about their timeline and their faith. I mean, you think about the story of Purim and also Hanukkah. You know, it's God's intervention on a possible moment when they could be annihilated or be defeated, but in a very dramatic, over-the-top way, God intervenes, not only saving them, but elevating them. And this is a way that you teach children and you carry on the faith. So that feast planning. So we've talked about online journaling via Joule. Then we talked about your major kind of research piece, which is the research paper. Now we've talked about feast planning. Now the final piece of the class when it comes to grade, well, there's always going to be a, and this is slippery, but is the participation grade that you'll get in class based on your readings. Now I suspect with 26 of it, or 27 of us, that participation shouldn't be all that hard because this is a smaller class than our New Testament, but we're getting to the place where we're almost kind of being a mob again. So I'll be looking at different ways to try to include you in large group conversation on Thursdays, and also maybe doing a chat board or something on Joule to get some ways that you can participate with classmates. So honestly, that part of the class, the participation, should be a really easy part. Just come do your thing, participate, and you'll have earned some pretty easy points. Because the rest of the class is a little more intense, asking you to do things, work with one another. So finally, the kind of the final project, if we're thinking about it this way, your online journaling and your research piece is the research paper and the online journaling is that which carries over all semester. Your feast project is kind of like your midterm, and then let's think about your final. Your final, what I'm going to ask for you to do to complete by the last day of class, and then reflect on in a final setting for us during finals week, is called the other project. Now, the other project is based on this notion. I want us to read it from the syllabus. I'm on page 7 here of the syllabus. It says this: in the Apocrypha, the Jewish believers are seeking to learn how to be faithful in a world in which their religious beliefs, practices, and particularities are oftentimes not appreciated. At times this led to radical Jewish assimilation into the Hellenistic world, or the opposite, a violent opposition by Jewish fundamentalists. Now, side note here, this is, if you paying attention at all to what's going on in Europe right now, is what Europeans are discussing when it comes to issues of immigration, specifically Islamic immigration into Europe, and how traditional Europeans, what I mean is white Europeans, are battling back and forth for how far do you include immigrants, specifically immigrants from Islamic parts of Africa or Asia or the Middle East. And what we're noticing are there are big protests in Dresden, Germany right now, anti-Islamic protests. You have some terrorist activities going on in Paris, but it's really, at the heart of it, is the issue of inclusion and exclusion. Who's us, who's not us, who are we with, who are we against, how does our society include, how does our Judeo-Christian cultural world include heartfelt Islam, and Europe in all its various nationalistic cultural dynamics is really wrestling with it. I think there are a lot of overarching parallels to what's going on in the Apocrypha, just in that inclusion-exclusion piece. So, anyways, that was a side note. Back to our discussion about this other project. Kind of the third sentence here. It says, today, in our Western and American values, we have similar dominances as did Hellenistic thought during the days of the Apocrypha, and this dominance has led minority groups to feel that they must assimilate or violently resist. Hence the rise of terrorist organizations. And of course, even that term, terrorist organizations, is very politically motivated or politically charged. Who gets to define what is terrorism? Because for some, you're a terrorist, for other, you're a freedom fighter or a revolutionary. But as terrorism rises, this automatically pushes the fear level through the roof. And when fear abounds, I am convinced, my personal bias is that exclusion, polarization, and separation occur. One would be hard-pressed to make an argument that polarization is not rapidly taking place in America. With this polarization, ignorance runs rampant. Then this is exactly why I think this other project, is so important. This is kind of the heart and soul of it. So, here's what you want to do. This is an experimental project in which you will locate somebody who is different than you. I mean, very different from you. They are, in your mind, the quote-unquote other. And you will then seek to know their world from their perspective. This is not me as, Rob Music, the evangelical preacher, going into the Islamic mosque and trying to share Jesus with them all and get them to pray the prayer of salvation. No. This would be me where I would go to the mosque after emailing them and calling them, asking about what are cultural sensitive ways for me to begin to join in the mosque, to be going in as a learner, beginning to ask, what's it like to be Islamic in Eastern Kentucky? And beyond that, what's it like to be, because many of the people who actively participate in the Eastern Kentucky Islamic Cultural Center in Prestonsburg are also having been born in a different country. So they're American citizens maybe, but maybe they're of Pakistani or Indian origin. So what's that like to be not only Islamic in the heart of Appalachia, but also being Indian-born in Appalachia as an Islamic person? What is it like for an Islamic person who then watches the news and watches all of these kind of almost people trying to implicate the fact that Islam is always and totally violent, which of course is not true, but what does that mean for a person? So I would, number one, have to find out who is the other in my world, and then I would seek to hear life from their voice, seeking to honestly appreciate their voice. I cannot convert or change them. I must go into my encounters with them with a mind and heart that does not have an agenda to change. Because if you have an agenda to change, then you are honestly not listening. You're simply trying to change them, which is not the heart of a true listener. So step number one, identify a person within a group or a type of person maybe that you radically dislike, that you distrust, or you inherently think there's something off about them. Maybe you're completely ignorant of a certain population of people. Maybe it's somebody you're afraid of. Now, I don't mean, someone who the last 3 weeks beat your brains out in a bar, but I mean, maybe there's a type of person that you are. Maybe you're very conservative and you're afraid of somebody in the LGBT community. Maybe that's possibly it. Or you're strongly fundamentalist Christian and you're afraid of somebody who's a Hindu. Or maybe you're a Muslim and you're very afraid of those Bible thumpers, right? A conservative Christian like myself. So let's just think about that. What's the other for you? And also, maybe this is a person who you believe is an inherently taboo. Maybe they're just inherently off. So I've given you some examples of what that might look like. But part of your selection of whoever the other is, you must be able to give me an articulated, thoughtful answer to why you chose this group. Okay? I really want you to personally push yourself. This is a unique opportunity for you to simply listen to somebody else. You get glass credit for it, and maybe honestly you would really be changed. So step number 2 then is you're going to seek out ways to interact with this person or this group. So maybe you want to go and interview them. Maybe you want to attend their worship services, or their club meetings, their social activities. Personal interaction is critical. Now, when thinking about this project, one of the hesitations is the fact that we live in eastern Kentucky, where diversity is very, very limited. But we live, according to Thomas Friedman, which I think I would agree, we live in a very flat world. I mean, I could simply now Skype or FaceTime somebody who lives in a very remote part of Thailand or India. So maybe you, when you're reading about this project, or me talking about now, you already have a group. You're like, man, I want to talk to Westboro Baptist Church, or I need to talk to, Al-Qaeda or something like that. Use the internet for your advantage. See if you can email organizations. Maybe you can do FaceTime. Be very creative with this. I think this has got a ton of potential to be in a really neat experience. So step number 3 in the project, you must intentionally listen to them. If you need help with this, I can kind of walk you through what that might mean about being an intentional listener. But you need to set up some times in which you can listen to their point of view. And you would then ask specific and thoughtful questions about how they see the world. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get to see what is their point of view. Also, you're trying to ask specifically of any forms of discrimination that they felt. And very, very importantly, asking about ways that they have either been overtly or subconsciously been asked to assimilate into the larger community. So therefore, a Muslim person in eastern Kentucky, why don't you just, there's this message that you're almost like a second-class citizen, but if you went to the Baptist church, you would really be in. And these messages about assimilation into larger culture, which at times have made them uncomfortable, you want to hear. Step number 4, you want to get to the place that you know their point of view so well, and that you can at least, you may not agree, but you can at least appreciate it to the point that you then can articulate it. That's where you know listening has really been effective. It's when you understand to the place that you can articulate it back. So articulating their viewpoint, their distinctive beliefs and practices, and that you're able to communicate it in an honest and thoughtful way that reflects their view. So when you reflect this and you understand their perspective, maybe you want to write this out or do a video about it, and then you would want to share that with the person or the group that you've been dialoguing with, and you need to ask them, does this authentically represent what you're telling me? Because if not, I need to change it. Step number 5, you then will seek ways to take their perspective and move it from the margins, or the places of exclusion, to the center. How do you get their voice heard on campus? So for example, in the LGBT community, it was starting a club. And that's why the DSA was started. How to LGBT community, how do they then bring their voice to the table where they're not excluded, but they are a part of the norm on campus. So they're now a part of typical club activities. They have meetings, all that. Another group just recently started was the Black Student Union. How then do black students who are in the minority here, how do they have their voice brought to the center, their unique needs brought to the center? Okay, so that's step number 5. And you are seeking ways to find avenues to help this voice be heard. So maybe then you do an educational video about this, and you then take this back home to your family in the holler and have a conversation about black persons with maybe your family members who are very, very racist. Okay? Don't recommend that during Easter dinner. But finally, step 6 is you will present this project in your findings to class on that finals week. You can do this through a paper, a video, a PowerPoint, an exotic interpretive dance, etc. Whatever is best to communicate your voice. So, key ways to succeed in this. Be thoughtful, intentional about your reasoning on how you chose the other. Please, please, please allow this to stretch you. Number 2, be creative on how you interact with the others. Use all forms of technology if necessary, and you never know unless you ask. So go ahead and send that email out. And Homeland Security asks you about why you're trying to reach out to Al-Qaeda. Let me know. Number 3, be considerate. This is very, very important. Now, I know the level of student I have in this class. I probably don't need to say it, but just in case. Be considerate when you present this project. Remember, this is an opportunity for others to learn and grow. And what you're learning is the material, the heart and soul of how the other students in class are going to learn. So be considerate, be thoughtful. As you stretch yourself, this is also a really growing way for fellow students. So think about it as you teacher here. You have an opportunity to really bless other people, 26 other people in your class, by the fact that you're vulnerable. But I really need you to be sensitive when you're asking some issues and questions about accommodation, assimilation. Some persons may tell you some hurtful things, stories that they've been very wounded, and I just ask you to be sensitive. Always be respectful when you encounter the other. Try to be thoughtful about your language, specifically when it comes to the original ask. I'll give you an example. I know one time when we were trying to first do our first multi-faith conversation, when I was asking the Jewish community to be involved with it. The Jewish community, many of the rabbis were very concerned that I was going to set it up and they were simply going to come and get hammered on by some Christian preachers. Be very sensitive on the way that you go about making the ask. Use language that's important to that community. And then finally, number 5, be courageous to allow the Spirit to expand your heart for love and hospitality to the other. I have given you in the syllabus on page 8 a very long discussion about the pages 7 and 8 about this. And with this then, I've given you 2 videos of people who have tried something like this and their results. So just be really creative. You'll notice on page 3 of our syllabus kind of gives you the daily outlines of some things. Also, page 5 is kind of your typical syllabus stuff about academic integrity, electronic devices, my commitment to you, your invitation, ADA policy, tutoring center, literacy information, and one other thing, and I forgot, this is kind of important, is class presentation. You, with a group of students, a team of 4 students, you will be asked to do research on one of the apocryphal books. And you guys, your group of 4, will be doing the class lecture. So, for example, let's say you and 3 other people in the class will be doing the class topic on Judith. You will, which is one of the texts of the Apocrypha. You'll read the text. You will then lead the class through a series of questions. You'll also provide a PowerPoint teaching themes on this topic and on this text. Your team will provide the lesson for that day. You will be graded on truthful content, the development of thought, your use of technology, and your presentation skills. The research notes will need to be turned in after class. Nothing you have to turn in beforehand, but after class. we will go over this presentation piece a little more when we get together the first time. So that then gives you an outline of the course. It sounds very busy, sounds very much like a Rob Music course where I'm trying to work you to death, but it's because I love you and because you're all amazingly intelligent scholars who are going to go out there and wipe the floor with all of those center grads, all those other students who think that people in the hills, well, anyways, you guys are bright and going to do well. Page 9 of the syllabus, I have given you a rough outline of what's known as the intertestamental period, the time between the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. Finally, page 10, kind of very typical that you've done in my other classes, is our class agreement where I need you to sign your name and date it. You will then turn this into me next class period. So yeah, print it out, bring it back to me. I'll try to bring some of these also with me the first time we get together. So saying that, that's our class. I can't wait to meet you guys. If you have any questions, please call me. Number is 419-560-6381. Send me a text at that number. Facebook me, email me. Let me know. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.